All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Eric Speck. I'm the Director of Peer Support at RPH Ally. Today, I have a very exciting guest joining me, Janett Barrett. She is the CEO and founder of Cerebral Health. She is also the author of an amazing book called Stop the Break. And today, we're going to talk about the importance of proactive mental health right after this. Boom. All right. That's always cool. I always get a kick out of that. I don't know what it is, but I love it. Anyway, Janett, thanks again for joining me today. How are you?
I am very well. Thank you so much for having me. That intro is very energizing with everything
It is.
swirling. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand why you like it.
Whoever made that should get major props. I don't know who did that, but I love it. So for all the viewers, I met Janett maybe about a month ago or so. Janett's a professional speaker, as am I myself, and we're in the same coaching program. And we discovered that we have similar topics, and so I was like, I need to reach out to her and get to know this person a little bit better. And after we started talking, just really, really amazing things that you're doing, Janett. So I wanted to bring you on so you can share all those amazing things with our viewers. So like I said, I want to talk about multiple things here: proactive mental health. I want to talk about your book, about your company. Maybe let's start with the proactive mental health. Tell us, in your opinion, what is this and why is it so important?
Yeah. So a lot of people think of being proactive with their physical health. They will go to the gym, they will, take supplements, they will do that type of thing in order to stay physically healthy. But not a lot of people think about being proactive in their mental health, taking care of the stress that they're going through on a daily basis, the very little things, because most of us learned at a young age that if we just simply get through it, that's success.
Yeah.
But we don't think about, as we're going through it, the things that we're actually taking on inside from an emotional perspective. And so my goal is to help people think about how can you be more proactive in addressing your mental health.
Yeah. Do you mind giving us a few examples or some tools? Like what can I do on a daily basis to be more proactive about my mental health? What does that look like?
So I like to talk to people and give the example of road rage or road, irritation, if rage is a word that you don't particularly care for. So if you're out driving and something annoys you for whatever reason, somebody cuts you off, somebody, doesn't use their turn signal or brakes hard, whatever it is, and you start to get annoyed. And you can feel the tension building up in your body. Well, in the middle of that situation, you can't actually react the way your body wants to react. Because if, say, for example, you rammed their car, police get involved, there's lawsuits, it's a problem. So you can't do it there. But when you get to where you're going, you might not even realize it because you're past that event, but your body has absorbed that stress.
Yeah.
And when you absorb that stress inside your body, it actually prevents you from feeling as good as you can. And it prevents your mind from actually functioning in a positive manner. Yeah. So if you simply take the time right there to let that out, and there is a really quick trick to do it, and I'll tell you in just a sec, but if you take that time right then, you will reduce the amount of cortisol in your system and increase the endorphins. And it allows you to just interact with the rest of your day. Yeah. Because what happens if you go through a whole bunch of those things in your day, they just build up and up and up and up until, in my case, I get home, I've got 4 kids, there's dishes everywhere, and I freak out at them like, put the dishes away.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like they're not additive. It's almost like it's an exponential type of growth. Because you do it with that second or third occurrence, and it's not only that bad, but you're still putting that on top of 2 other things that happened, and you have your cortisol pumping through your veins, like you mentioned, and that's going to make you not be able to deal with this next situation as good as you normally could have. So yeah, you get like that exponentially worse at handling these kind of situations and these occurrences.
Exactly. Yeah. So take a couple of seconds. I say it's like finding your base camp. Find that little point where you can set down that emotional baggage and, move on to the next point in your
Yeah.
day. But if you don't take the time, then you're right. It's going to build up and get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. And what about revisiting it? Because I think in the moment you can do something to calm yourself down, center yourself. I feel like sometimes you need to revisit it after that too, at the end of your day. If you're like me, I do a journaling exercise. You journal about that. What happened? What did I do? How am I feeling now? What do I plan on doing regarding that event? So it may be something that needs to be processed multiple times at different periods of time for you to actually get the most benefit out of it.
Yeah, so that's actually what I call true resilience. So you talked about getting through it in the moment and being able to kind of calm yourself. And that's halfway to resilience. That's getting through it. But then the recovery is that second part. And journaling is a really good thing to do. There's a lot of options. The one that we have learned about most recently within the last 10 to 20 years is the fact that there is a big connection between our mind and our body and how we physically trap those emotions in our body. So that physical release of the emotion, which is not exercise, it is very different from exercise. I get a lot of people that say, I do yoga, I run, I weight train. Like, that's great, but that's not releasing your emotion. You have to connect the emotion with the physical release. At the end of the day, would be ideal if we could get everybody to do that every day.
Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with progressive muscle relaxation. Would that fall under the category you're talking about?
No. So
that's something that works really well for me. My therapist, when I was an undergrad, really stressed out at university, taught me that technique. You tighten specific parts of your body strategically, and then you release. And by relaxing your body, you're able to relax your mind. And I found that to be really, really effective.
So that is a really great process to kind of manage the in the moment and the stress levels. But what I'm talking about is actually being able to release that stress trauma that you're carrying with you, whether it's little or not. Because if it's still spinning in your head, it's because it's primarily trapped in your body. And you can use that technique of the tense and release if you're doing it while you've reactivated the emotion in your head. So otherwise, that's simply just a system calming mechanism, which is really important. But what it is not doing is actually releasing that emotional weight. Does that difference make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Is it that additional piece in there where you're actually going back and you're connecting that experience mentally while you're doing the physical part of it. So
exactly.
Okay. We covered why this proactive mental health is really important for individuals, and we talked in general about how we can do it. Let's talk about on a greater scale. Why is this so important when we look at the country as a whole?
So if you look at it from a business perspective, one of the biggest hidden costs in business right now is what's called presenteeism. Yeah. And that's people that show up for work because they can pretend they're okay, but on the inside, they're actually not. And it's due to burnout, depression, anxiety, stress, all the things that we are feeling. And it's costing the economy about $150 billion annually.
That's wild.
If we simply helped people learn how to do that process on a daily basis, it would allow them to actually be much more productive and much more engaged.
Yep.
Then from a society perspective, one of the biggest challenges we have right now is simply the overall cost of mental health care and the lack of resources. And we're never going to have enough therapists to be able to address everyone's needs.
Yep.
So I was going to say, so we need to have a different way to approach it. And this is a different way.
Yeah, I agree. And we hear your dog barking in the back. I think that's
sorry about that.
No, I know it's perfectly fine. We love dogs. Your dog is more than welcome. So please do not worry about it whatsoever. I don't know if I mentioned to you, I used to work at a company that we specialize in crisis behavioral health. So we built stand-up, brick and mortar clinics that were open 24/7 to handle patients in crisis. And I can tell you it's very, very expensive to build out these locations and staff them 24/7, observe them for 24 hours or more, sometimes multiple days, even multiple weeks in some cases. You're talking thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to stabilize and treat these patients. And if we were to take a more proactive approach and intervene sooner, I imagine the costs are going to be significantly less. I'm making up numbers here, 10% or so.
Oh,
The
it's way
amount of
more than
cost.
that.
Yeah, the savings is more than that, huh?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's very similar to if you were to think of breast cancer or prostate cancer, if you
Yeah.
catch that at stage 1 versus stage 4,
Right.
the cost differential is about 97 to 99%.
Oh, wow.
The amount it costs to treat stage 1 versus stage 4. And the same is true for mental health.
Wow.
You save more, it's actually even a greater, but you save about 99% of the cost if you're able to treat people in the early stages. The biggest challenge is that identifying people with mental health challenges tends to be hard because it's self-reported. And people don't want to admit that they have a challenge and need help because there's so much stigma around it. And so, that's one of the things I am working on, is coming up with what I call a lab test that allows people to get help earlier without having to simply say, hey, I need help, and take some of that stigma away.
Yeah, and I think part of it is the stigma, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that's one of the questions I was going to ask. But I think it also has to do with the individual may not even know that they're not doing well mentally. They may think they're doing fine. They may think that this is normal. It's like, yes, I'm not sleeping through the night. Yes, I'm very stressed, but there's nothing wrong with that. So I can't go get help. So I think increasing this awareness and this knowledge of, what is mentally healthy and what is not, if we could increase everybody's knowledge of what that is, then they're able to self-identify it a little bit better. And as long as that stigma is reduced, then they're able to go get the help that they need. But I think that's the first step of they need to be aware of when they're not doing good mentally. I think everybody now is really good at identifying it if they're having a panic attack, if they're in crisis. But I think a lot of us could probably get more mental health care than we're currently getting because we don't realize we need it. We don't realize it would benefit us.
Absolutely.
And this is a big part of your mission, right? Is spreading this information out there, even talking to government, right? And trying to show them these facts and these figures and get your point across about how important this is and how much money is going to be saved and how much lives are going to be improved on such a grand scale. Tell me a little bit about how is your progress going with that venture and what type of hurdles are you encountering?
So you're right. That is my passion, my desire, my goal is to try and impact this in some way, shape, or form. So one of the things that I'm doing, I have my book, Stop the Break. And that's talking about we let these people break before we have resources to help them. And we need to stop approaching it that way. And so I talk to people. That's my platform when I go out as a speaker, when I work with companies. I have a program called Resilience Builder that will go and assess where you need help on a whole 30 points. And that can help individual companies. But the other thing that I'm looking at is how do we approach this from an insurance perspective and a government regulation perspective? Because we keep pushing the responsibility further downstream for people to take care of people with mental health issues. Like, we need to stop that. We need to stop letting them get to that point and bringing it up much further. And honestly, I think of it kind of like Maya Angelou when she said, now that we know better, we can do better. Because a lot of it is a historical problem. Your point of we don't know what we don't know. I didn't know I had a problem until I ended up breaking. And then I look back and like, oh my goodness, had I just known this, but we didn't actually know better years ago. And so now that we know better, we can do better.
Yeah, I remember you describing that the first time we talked. Like you thought you were doing okay for the longest time until
Mhm.
you obviously weren't. And then you looked back on things and you were like, oh man, I wasn't mentally healthy back
I was
then.
not for 50
Yeah,
years. Literally, it
yeah,
was
wow.
5 decades that I thought if I just simply push through, that means I'm okay.
Yeah,
But we need to let people know that's not the bar that we need to set. Just getting through something doesn't mean you're okay. You need to be able
yeah,
to get through and recover.
yeah. And I just imagine what you describe, for how many people is that the norm? How many people can identify with that as well? I'd probably say most people.
Yeah, I
Pretty
would I would as well.
pretty confident on that. So, um, well, Janet, I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things up with you here because we're about at time. Try to keep these to about 15 minutes. But I love what you're doing. I think it's clear that it's so important, this mission that you're on. And I'm sure a lot of people watching this too are really interested in learning more about you, maybe how they can get involved, how they can reach you. So, what is the best way for somebody to get in contact with you or learn more about you if they're interested?
So the best way is to go to my website, which is just janett-barrett.com. So JANET-B as in boy, ARRETT.com. And when you're there, all of my contact information is there. You can follow me on any of the socials. And you can also register. I give away a free copy of my book every month. And if you sign up, you can register for that and potentially win a free copy of Stop the Break.
I love it. Fantastic. All right, Janet. Well, thank you once again. It's been fantastic having you on. Look forward to getting to know you better, staying in contact with you. And for anybody else watching this, if you want to get in contact with me, you know where to find me, rphli.com. Come over to the Peer Support Show. I'd be happy to help you out, answer any questions you may have. All right,
Thank
Janet.
you.
Everyone, take care. Bye-bye.